Zdrowie! Today we're going to be talking about this pen. This is an Esterbrook pen, and to be precise, it's the Model J Ebonite Green Lotus. There is also another finish which was a bit more sort of brown. This is a green. It was lent to me by Joost Appelboom, and it's kind of inspired by the vintage Model J. It is indeed, to the extent that both are fountain pens. I'll come back to that. I'm going to cover the parts of the pen. I will do a writing sample and I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like about this pen. Woo! Let's go! Okay, here we go with the Esterbrook Model J Ebonite Green Lotus. 297 euros and 52 cents of Appelboom. I've seen them in the US, about 265 US street price. Cute box, looks a bit vintage. I quite like that. It was established 1858, of course went under, right? This is a resurrected brand, and that's pretty much it. So box, pull it out, different things come out. You have these boxes. Esterbrook has been using these for a long time. I quite like it. It feels like a cloth fabric, which is quite neat. You have the little pen bed, there is a cartridge, there is a little tiny envelope which is very cute, and then Esterbrook, and then it says scan to activate your pen, not to make it right, like it just writes out of the box. Anyway, I'm trying to put that back in. Again, it's not my property, so I'm just going to make sure I do this more or less adequately. Well, there we go, that's it, that's what you get. Kind of nice detail that you have the logo on the inside of that drawer. I think that looks quite neat. But what you really want to see is the pen. So these pens come in a range of nib options: extra fine, fine, medium, broad. I'll zoom in a bit. They are Jowo number 6 nibs, gold plated. You can also get a 1.1 millimeter nib, and then you can get specialty nibs. The Journaler by Gina, the Scribe by Josh, and that is an architect nib, which is what's on this pen, and then a needlepoint by Kirk Peer. This is the pen next to a Pilot Metropolitan, just for size, about the same length, but definitely a bit girthier. The company describes this as a timeless masterpiece that gracefully blends vintage charm with modern ingenuity. It is based on the 1950s J model, which was actually a lever filler, which was slimmer, more tapered at the end of the barrel, and basically had a completely different finial. But they are indeed both fountain pens. A revived brand, right? So I don't think it's strange for a revived brand to kind of reach back to its original pens. Sorry, that was just a sip of tea. And try to revive those brands. I'm not sure if I think of a Model J, I think of this particular pen, but that doesn't mean this is not a nice pen. It has its own charm. So let's cover the parts of the pen. We have on top the finial with, again, that Esterbrook logo. I think is quite nice. We have the clip, which looks quite a bit like the vintage Esterbrook clip, so I will definitely give them that. It's a nice green ebonite. There's also a more brown version available. And we have this center band, which looks like it's hammered. I think it looks quite nice, adds a nice visual texture to it. And I guess a bit of tactile texture as well, actually. We have another ring there, and then we have the barrel, which tapers down, and that's it. Unscrew the cap, you get this kind of nice, quite nice number 6 Jowo nib. Again, in this case, that architect, which they call the Scribe. Very interesting architect. I'll show you that in just a second when we write with it. Section tapers down, flares out a little bit. You have these threads, which are a little bit sharp, but because there's quite a lot of section to hold on to, I don't find that an issue at all as I write with it. Posts, if you like it posted. Let me zoom out a tiny bit so you can actually see it. Nice size posted, and frankly I think nice size not posted. I think this is a nice size of pen that works for a lot of people. We have the feed, not ebonite, and that's perfectly fine. Then we have the converter, which is labeled Esterbrook. I think that's a nice eye for detail. It's a converter, cartridge converter fill pen, as you saw earlier, does come with a cartridge and clearly comes with the converter. So I think that's very nice. It also seems to have a bit of a spring-loaded mechanism in the cap, so you do have to actually push down a little bit on it to make it cap. And then we have the clip, which is quite nice and springy. What you really want to see, though, is how it writes, because I have teased you with the word architect. Excuse me. So let's see what we can do. That looks pretty good. Here we have the note that an architect is not really suited for cursive like I do necessarily, but you know, there we are. This is that's just me, right? That's not the nib. This is a steel scribe nib, they call it, and the ink is just Waterman blue. Clearly you can use it for cursive writing. I always feel it's more meant for print. I'll show you the different line, like the line variation in just a second. Quite nice. You get a nice wide line. I'll do some quick writing and then you can see the feed keeps up well. That spring-loaded mechanism does seem to keep the nib nice and wet, because I haven't actually used this in days, and it started up straight away. So that's really, really nice. I think I forgot to mention that in positives, but I'll add that here. That's a very nice aspect to this pen. So nice, pretty wet. If you like a broader nib, this is an interesting way to go. Now, having said that, with Architect nibs, the angle of the pen often determines the line width a little bit. So you can get a thinner line out of it. You can get a much wider line out of it, and that's really cool. An Architect nib basically is the reverse of an italic nib. An italic nib would have a broad downstroke and a narrow side stroke. An Architect has a narrow downstroke and a much broader side stroke. And then again, depending on the angle, I'll try to maximize that. So here we have thin downstrokes and really wide side strokes. So as I said, if you use printing, I'm thinking of Janine Scribbles, for example, who's extremely good in coming up with all kinds of interesting fonts. I think you get more benefit out of an Architect than I would with cursive, but that is not a criticism of the pen, that's just because of the way I write with my pens. Reverse writing, the audience holds its breath. Kind of works. Very, very, this would be an extra fine, I would say. It gets a bit drier, but you can get away with a couple words. Maybe, it is an Architect, right? So maybe don't assume that it's meant for that, because it isn't. Flexibility, I kind of forgot. I mean, it's a pretty stiff nib, but you get a lot of line variation just because of the way it's ground, so I wouldn't, I mean, it's not a flex nib. Let's put it that way. Okay. What else? Nothing. I think what we should do is talk about likes. Really weird to do something until-like with that sort of grind, but let's talk about likes and dislikes. What do I like and what do I not like about this pen? There are a couple of things I really like. Ebonite, I think, is nice. It's a nice material. It has a warm feeling. It's a bit, can you see that? It's a bit mottled. You should have seen that in the writing. Camera pointed down a bit, but anyway, here we go. Here we are. I think it's quite nice. If I were to pick one of these finishes, I would probably pick the other finish, but that's neither here nor there. That's my personal preference. I do really like that. The nib is great. This Architect nib is a true Architect. Nice thin downstroke, nice broad side stroke. Doesn't really lend itself super well for the cursive in which I write, but that's why I wouldn't get that nib. I would get this pen with another nib. If you like Architect nibs, this is a very good architect, so I will absolutely say that. I think the details are very nice. This sort of center, well not sort of, this center band, oh, sorry. It's hard to capture in the light, but I think here we go, has, it looks like it's hammered a bit. That's a nice detail, and it elevates this pen a little bit in my mind. So I think that is, that's really quite nice. Things I don't like so much. With an ebonite only cap, this would be the same concern I would have with, say, resin or something like that. If there is no center band, you can put quite some pressure on the cap lip as you screw it tight, and it can crack. Now, this looks to me like it is not the thinnest bit of ebonite, so I don't think it's a huge issue. I also think that from an aesthetic perspective, just rubbed ink on the cap, sorry, just wiping that off. From an aesthetic perspective, I think the pen looks good without a cap band. It's just something to be aware of. Don't over tighten it maybe, right? The other thing I will say is I find it expensive for what it is. You're talking about a cartridge converter, steel nib pen, not a limited edition. And it converts, like I saw the street price in the US is about 265 US. I find that steep for what you actually get. Yes, it's a nice writer, yes, it's ebonite. It's not a gold nib. At that price, I would really start to expect a gold nib. There's a cartridge converter fill pen, which is fine. Cartridge converters are easy to clean, so it's not a criticism. But for what you get, I find it a steep price. That's it. Final thing I will say is I don't really find this pen to strongly resemble the Model J vintage Esterbrook. Both had a clip that looked somewhat like that, but a lot of similarities end there. Finial looked a little different, the end of the barrel looked a little different, the size is different. Those are lever fillers. Now lever fillers, that's a very specific filling system. I don't know if that, my opinion, I don't know if that really has a strong place in the modern pen world. It's kind of finicky. It's the lever boxes, if they break, it's an enormous pain to fix. I think cartridge converter, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with then updating the filling system. I just don't really see an awful lot of Model J in these pens. But I'm not an Esterbrook expert. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Let me know. What do you think? That's pretty much it. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye.